I grew up in a fishbowl. Seriously, a fishbowl. Tiny little town. At first, there was not even really a town, and then my dad got a new church and we upgraded to the one stoplight. So exciting. It was huge. There was actually a grocery store that you didn't have to drive miles and miles to get to. There's one elementary school. My mom was a teacher, 6th and 7th grade, and my dad was the pastor in town. So between the teacher and the preacher, I don't think there was anyone in that town who didn't know who I was. Being a PK in a rural community is a unique experience, but I had peers, I had other kids around, and it was already a little bit awkward for me to adjust to that life and to live that life. As an adult, I look back and I think, what was that like for my parents? What was it like for the preacher in town? For the teacher in town who moved into a new community that they weren't from. They were not locals, they were come-heres. What did they do for friendship? Before cell phones and texting people that you knew from CMN conference. What did they do before email? When it was, the Christmas card with the newsletter, and that's how they found out about their college friends' lives in ministry. It's a different world. But the same feelings can remain for those who pastor in a rural community like you. There's a sense of isolation for almost every church planter. There are days where we feel like, oh my goodness, am I the only person in the world going through this right now? We can feel so alone, even if every Sunday we stand in front of a crowd of people. But being able to build that personal connection, those personal relationships, real friendship matters. So I want to give you 2 ways. I can't tell you they're quick ways. I'm going to talk about it really fast, but it's going to take you a while to cultivate, okay? The first way is with your peers in ministry. We have resources. We have places that we can go, like a CMN conference, your friends from your table at a launch training, from general counsel, from your district or network conference, that you can meet people that are in similar situations. You can ask somebody who pastors in a very different context, do you know anyone like me? Do you know anybody who pastors anywhere in the country like me? When I became senior pastor, I found these 6 other women who were also lead pastors, and we formed a cohort ourselves, the Preacher Girls, where we made a covenant that every year, maximum we would go is 18 months, but every year we would meet together. So we would go to the same place, have a retreat, and we didn't talk about our churches. Sometimes systems would come up, but we talk about life. Find some friends where you talk about life. But here's the second way that you need to find friendship and leave that isolation behind in rural community. Find peers in your neighborhood. A lot of times we just look at people in our towns and think about how to get them to attend our church instead of looking at them as opportunity for friendship. Find the superintendent of the schools. Look at a local high school principal, a community or city council leader, other people who work in jobs like yourself where there tends to be a sense of isolation. You tend to be put on a bit of a platform or a podium above people. People look up to you. Find the other leaders in your community that people look up to and invite them all to lunch. Because then you're going to talk about life. You don't need to pastor them in that moment. You need to befriend them. I had surgery one year while I was lead pastoring our church, and I was out for 6 weeks while I was on bed rest and had to go through the recovery process. The first people that sent me flowers were city leaders because I had relearned how to be a good friend so that I could leave my isolation behind in ministry. I had this network of women around the country that I would meet with, and they understood being a female lead pastor. You need other rural pastors who understand that. But I also needed proximity friendships, other leaders in my community who loved my town, understood my town, and could live life next to me. I'll be praying for your friendships.